All right, so it's about 9 p.m. West Coast time on Tuesday. And I've been thinking about this deal that 7 Senate Democrats and 1 independent made with Republicans to bring the government shutdown to an end based on a promise from John Thune that there would be a full vote, before the full Senate on the Affordable Care Act subsidies that are set to expire by the end of the year. And I've been thinking a lot about Chuck Schumer because, he put out a 15-second long video saying that he's voting no, but that he and other Senate Democrats are going to continue to fight for the American people. Chuck Schumer is the leader of the Senate Democratic caucus. And so I've been thinking about Chuck Schumer, and I've been thinking about how Nancy Pelosi ran her caucus when she was Speaker of the House. Especially during the first 2 years of Joe Biden's term as president. Chuck Schumer was the leader of Democrats in the Senate. Nancy Pelosi was the Speaker of the House. Chuck Schumer was majority leader at that time. And without question, Nancy Pelosi, I firmly believe, was the most effective and the most talented and skilled Speaker of the House during my lifetime. The legislative agenda that they got through during Joe Biden's first 2 years, with razor-thin margins in the House and the Senate, was the most consequential legislative agenda of any president who served 2 full terms in the last 60 years. And Nancy Pelosi was a leader. Chuck Schumer's not a leader. Nancy Pelosi got shit done that nobody thought that she could get done because she had control of her caucus. These 7 Democrats and 1 independent made this deal, and the leader of the Democratic caucus in the Senate is against it. So either Chuck Schumer has absolutely no control over his caucus in the U.S. Senate, or what I believe happened, Chuck Schumer orchestrated this deal between these 7 Democrats and 1 independent and Republicans in the Senate. And he did so in a way, because remember what happened in March. He did the same thing in March. There wasn't as much on the line, but he did the same thing in March to get the government funded. He and 8 or 9 other Democrats made a deal with Republicans, and the Democratic base lost their shit. Chuck Schumer had to cancel his book tour because they were going to have this vote, and then they were going to go into recess for 2 weeks, I think for the Easter break. And Chuck Schumer had to cancel his book tour. And there were calls for him to resign as minority leader back then. So going into this one, he knew that he couldn't have his fingerprints on it because he's up for re-election in 2026. So he had to vote no publicly and had to put out that little 15-second video that he did looking like a tough guy. But he also wanted the government shutdown to come to an end. not because he thought that was the best thing for the American people, but I'm sure he was getting an incredible amount of pressure from his corporate and donor class overlords. And I think Bernie Sanders put it perfectly. Somebody asked him in an interview a day ago about this, and they put the question to him something like, do you think that Chuck Schumer has what it takes to be the minority leader, the leader of the Democrats in the Senate? And Bernie Sanders didn't say yes or no, but he gave a really revealing answer. He said, Chuck Schumer and I represent two different constituencies. Chuck Schumer, the corporatist, donor class Democrats, they raise tens of millions of dollars from that constituency. And Bernie Sanders was like, I represent the American people, indicating clearly that those are two very distinct and separate constituencies within the United States Senate among Democrats. And so Chuck Schumer is either an incredibly ineffective leader of his own caucus, that this deal happened under his nose, on his watch, that he had that little control over his caucus, that essentially 8 members were able to go make this deal with Republicans, and there was nothing that he could do about it, or he didn't even know about it, or he couldn't stop it. Or, again, as I said, what I think happened is that he orchestrated the entire thing. And I'm struggling to figure out which one is worse. Because the first one, he can't do the job. He's not a leader. Members of his own caucus don't respect him. He has no control over them. Or second, he orchestrated it in a way to keep his fingerprints off of it, which means that he lied to every single one of us. Which means that he thinks that all of us are fucking stupid. Which demonstrates that he has absolutely no respect for the American people or for the Democratic base. And I'm not a Democrat. I haven't been a registered Democrat in 25 years. But would something like this have happened on Nancy Pelosi's watch? No fucking way. Whether you love her, whether you hate her, no fucking way. There's zero chance anything like this would have happened on Nancy Pelosi's watch. And if this is what he believes should have happened and did orchestrate this, which I think is fairly obvious that he did, he's unwilling to say that. He's unwilling to stand behind what he did. He's unwilling to say to his own constituents and to the American people that he thinks this is the right thing to do. So he is lying to every Democrat in this country and expects to remain as the minority leader for the Democratic Party in the United States Senate. He expects to remain as a part of the national Democratic leadership. He's either incompetent or he's lying. Those are the only two choices. Those are the only two choices. And sadly, I think all evidence is pointing to the latter, that he's just lying to every one of us. And he thinks he's going to get away with it because he thinks we're stupid. He picked Democrats who aren't on the ballot in 2026. They won't face voters for another 3 years. That was intentional. That was orchestrated. That was strategic. That was tactical. He is lying to us every single